Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. There's been discussion and comments about why I do what I do, kind of inference, but that's okay. I enjoy doing what I do, and I enjoy it because to me life is sharing, and because we share, all of us, I think, become better, enriched, so we take our life experiences and add them to others, and that may help us either consider other things that we might want to experience or things that we don't want to experience. And that is really kind of the focus that I do in my videos, is trying to provide you, the viewer, number one, an entertaining experience, because you're tuning in on YouTube. You could be watching anything else. There is a extremely large amount of visual entertainment available to us in this modern age. But I will relate to you why I make decisions to acquire certain things, whether those acquisitions meet my expectations, my views on whether this item meets its purpose, serves its purpose, and hopefully you make a decision as to whether this is something you want to experience in the real world or just experience it virtually in this internet world. So here we have before us two pens from the DC Pen Show, and pens that were on my bucket list to get at the DC Pen Show. I hadn't decided before I went what versions. There are 4 versions of this pen. Here's the versions from the Keras Pen Company website. I ended up with these 2. I could have bought all 4, but I wasn't that interested in the ones I did not buy. So one of the things that, I think is part of all of us is where we came from, where we're at now, and where we're going. So my training is as a metallurgist. I went to school. That was the curriculum that I chose after electrical engineering had like a gazillion people in it, and metallurgy had 20. But also I enjoy metals, rocks, the earth, and so I felt that was good. And I wanted to be an engineer when I went to school. I went to college for engineering, and I went to an engineering school. And so my roots are there. So to me, a metal pen is just a fascination, an interest. I like the way they feel. I like the materials. I like their indestructibility, which is one of the things that Keras Pen Company has embodied in their pens. So this one here, to me, is just a great design. I love the tumbled aluminum. I love the 3-2-1 bands here, which are still, polished inside of there. They weren't tumbled out. I think this little peak at the bottom of the barrel and cap are just really nice little nuances. So as we know, a pen is to write with, and when we forget that, we kind of forget everything. But I also appreciate pens for their visual appeal, for their engineering, for their ingenuity. So when I first picked up this pen at the DC Pen Show, the first thing I did was do this, because it's a metal Keras Customs pen. And I watched the videos. I should have known. You pull the cap off and there's a nice distinct flavor. Now you notice what happened when I turned it. It unscrewed. So that's kind of a design trait. So if you're going to make a cap that fits tight and secure, and it's going to fit on this section in order to seal the nib, then if you turn it, the odds are it's going to turn this. Of course, if you turn it the wrong way, it won't. But that's just the nature of the beast. So to me, this tumbled aluminum just is a beautiful feel in the hand. It fits well in the hand without posting. But one of the things that was done in the design of this pen, like the push-on cap, it securely posts. And this pen is relatively light. I mean, you might think a metal pen is heavy, but this is not. And I think that section is almost about a perfect size for my medium fingers. You know, my fingers kind of touch, which is what I like. And you can hold it anywhere, because that's part of the beauty of a pull-off cap, is there's no threads here. And I like a flare out at the bottom because, you know, you don't want to get too close to the nib. At least I don't want to. This has a broad steel nib in it. So when I originally bought these, I bought a broad steel and a medium steel nib. They're all Bock number 5 nibs. And then later on, when I found out they had a broad titanium nib, I bought one of those, and it was a number 5. So that's now in the black pen. So all of these parts fit together well. So that's one of the things that, to me, I really enjoy about Karas Kustoms, is that it's American craftsmanship, but it's really just craftsmanship. It's staying true to form, doing what you love to do and sharing it with people, and the fact that other people enjoy that just makes it even better. So in this design, you don't really see the 3-2-1 and those carved rings that you did in the tumbled aluminum, so that's one of the main differences. There's still that nice conical design at the top of the cap and the bottom of the barrel as I try to get the light to reflect off of it. There we go. And the other thing that I admire and like about Karas Kustoms is they're extremely consistent. So that pops off too. We have that same section. So I enjoy a black pen, and this one has a broad titanium nib in it. We'll see how both of these write, compare them. So before we go into a little bit more in-depth look at these pens and also comparing them to other Karas Kustoms and also some other metal pens that I have, let me answer one question that might be on your mind. Chris, if you could only choose one of these two pens, which one would you choose? And to me, that's an easy decision. I love the tumbled aluminum one. I now regret that I haven't been more interested in tumbled aluminum as a pen finish for a metal pen, but I love the feel. And this is a little slippery. It's you know, in retrospect, it's not my favorite. It's certainly not slippery enough to make it unusable, but slipperier than I prefer. And that's the one thing that I always hope that you, my viewers, understand, is I'll give you my opinions, and many of you have bought pens based on my opinions, and the feedback that I've gotten has been fairly good, and I appreciate that and enjoy it because it reinforces the fact that what I present, when you experience what you see visually, you can confirm what I presented. So that makes my day. So here we have my 4 Karas Pen Company pens. Down here is a Fountain K that I got that was a discontinued series. It has, and I don't remember the exact material, but it has a plastic cap and a raw machined aluminum barrel. And when I reviewed that pen, a number of people were not happy with the finish on the barrel, but I enjoy it because it is what it is, and it's reminiscent of, you know, the actual machining that was done to produce the pen. And here's the 2 Starliner XLs, and here's the ink that I have, which I really have enjoyed. That was the first Karas Kustoms pen that I got. And I think this is representative of their industrial design and style. I mean, that's probably the most substantial clip I think I've ever seen on a pen. It's functional, but there's certainly, you're never going to spring that clip. What I find interesting is in the Fountain K versus the Starliner, they've changed the screws that are used to hold in the clip. And again, these are very functional, very stiff clips. And that's kind of nice to see that. So if I was to, compare this Fountain K to the Starliners, I prefer the Starliners. I think it's a beautiful design. I like the whole REAKTOR line and what they put into the thoughts on that line of pens. So I also wanted to do a comparison on certain types of metals and finishes and how they work. So at the bottom here is the Namasu Nova in stonewashed titanium. And to me, I got that pen specifically because it's made out of titanium, because it's stonewashed, because I thought the Namasu design was phenomenal. You just got a Bock nib in it, so it's still just a pen holder in the end of the day. And then next to that is the Ensu pen that I haven't published a review on, but I got that on Mass Drop. And basically, both of these have titanium nibs, and they both cost about the same amount, but the Ensu was at a substantial discount on Mass Drop. So you'll see more details when I do my review of that. And here's the stonewashed or tumbled aluminum. And here's the Fountain K with just a standard machined aluminum. So at the end of the day, I was impressed with this finish. Feels good. This is okay, but I didn't realize how much I enjoyed the polished titanium. It's not slippery. It's actually, to me, in my hands, it feels better than the tumbled titanium or stonewashed titanium. And the tumbled aluminum, that takes, of these four pens, that is to me the nicest feel. So on the Fountain K, I got a brass section, and I also did that on my ink. So I tried to unscrew the cap. I also got that on my ink because I think it's good to have the weight towards the nib end. I think that facilitates and makes the writing easier. So, but I don't mind the way this works with the balance, and maybe at some point in time Karas Pen Company might offer different sections, but I kind of got the feeling from the videos that I watched and my discussions at the DC Pen Show is, in order to keep the Starliner costs where they're at, which is very competitive. I mean, it's an excellent price for a machined metal pen, especially designed as well as this is, that they're going to limit their varieties, because that is inventory units. It limits when they go through retail distributors, but with only 4 versions of the Starliner, it makes inventory a little bit different, and you will have to have an inventory of nibs, but the number 5 nibs is in a number of pens, including the Fountain K, and that black nib may eventually end up in the black Starliner at the end of this exercise. Here are the 3 number 5 Bock nibs. The one on the left here is the broad titanium, the broad in stainless, and the medium in stainless. You can see the tipping material there, and the feed obviously is the same on both of them. But one thing I noticed that I wanted to show before I insert these is there's a color code on the back. So the 2 red ones are broad and the yellow one is medium, so maybe that's related. I pulled the number 6 fine out of my Vectrix, and there doesn't seem to be any color on the other end, but then that's been inked for a while and these have not, so maybe it doesn't hold up, but at least we have some indication of maybe telling Bock nibs from that color. So now we've come to the most important part of the review, writing. So I enjoyed the Vertex pen. I enjoyed my revelation that it is actually a nib holder, and I think that pen really suits that with the way that it's designed and the way that the parts are made in the clear section and everything else. So we'll start with the tumbled aluminum, because I love the way that it feels. And to me, part of a metal pen is the feel of the pen, how the weight is distributed. I think this feels kind of what I would expect from a pen made of plastic from a weight-wise. So for those of you that would like a metal pen and don't want to deal with the weight of brass or titanium or copper, then this might be a pen that you would consider. So it's always good to know what ink is in the pen that I'm going to be writing with. So I put this Great Southern Ocean in both of these Starliner XLs. You know, I enjoy my Robert Oster ink. This is really on the dark side, so be prepared. So you saw that it started up right away, and it had been setting for a minute or two. So this nib has a generous flow. It is really smooth. I think this is the first broad Bock steel nib that I have, and I like it. I mean, it's not for those that don't want to lay down a lot of ink, but it still dries relatively well, and that's really a deep, deep blue. So this ink will definitely serve a nice spot in my ink collection. And it's no trouble, obviously, laying down a nice patch of ink with this nib. Let's see how that spreads out. Interesting different colors. I have LED light. The sunlight has been gone for a while. We've had a tremendous amount of rain here recently. We got about 2 inches today. We have mushrooms growing on mushrooms. So overall, I think this is a beautiful combo. And I did have a fine Bock nib. I had a medium Bock nib, so I enjoy them. You know, there's a whole thing about Jowo versus Bock, but it's for another video. So let's go to the black one. So in this one, I put the broad titanium. So I think I need to be, you know, open with my viewers. This broad titanium nib costs more money than the pen did. And there was no, you know, show special, because these nibs, I don't think there's many of them around, and it's definitely an interesting nib. I mean, as you can see, it's a much broader line than the steel nib, and it is substantially, this is about as wet as you can get. For those of you that like inks that sheen and you don't mind taking a few hours for the ink to dry, this is the perfect nib. This is the wettest modern nib I've ever written with. This is not for those that want to write fine lettering. And you put a little pressure on this, and you lay down a phenomenal amount of ink. So, is this a nib I think I'm going to use very often? Well, not with this ink. To me, that green Pen BBS ink that I got with a little glitter in it might work well with this. And some other inks that might have some shading or some other nuances that are really going to be promoted by this super wet nature that it writes. Yeah, it requires a little bit of pressure to put down the ink. And this nib is also, you get some feedback with it. It's not a lot. I'd say on a 1 to 10 feedback scale, it's about a 4. So just to put things in perspective, this has a fine Bock titanium nib in it. To me, nothing feels like a metal pen the way the threads interact and everything else. So let's see how this looks. The ink is going to be different. This is definitely could be an everyday writer. This does have more feedback than the broad nib, but generally the finer the nib, the more feedback you're going to get. Not necessarily always the case, but that's kind of a general rule of thumb. But this lays down a fairly decent line. This is Robert Oster Cafe Crema. So, you know, if you're going to buy a titanium nib, I mean, there's a lot of variety out there. To me, they have some of the qualities of gold nibs. They are soft. You get a nice bouncy feel from them. You don't want to muscle them around and see how much you can flex them until they finally spring, but as part of using a fountain pen or any type of tool, you need to know the limits of that tool and how to make it do what you want it to do. So now we've come to that all-important rating. And I have to admit that I have to separate the pen from the nib. So we're going to rate this tumbled aluminum with any nib of your choice. We're going to put it at a 9.2. Less than the Vertex, because I feel that the Vertex has a couple other attributes to it that make it a slightly better pen. But again, a lot of this is subjective. I mean, if you like this finish and this pen, this is great. Now we're going to rate the black one. I think you can guess what the number will be, or at least in the ballpark. We're going to give it an 8.4. It's less than the tumbled aluminum primarily because for me this still doesn't give you that tactile feeling, this the black coating on this pen. I mean, all the other features of it are the same, but that makes it and drops it down a little bit in the rating. So I think this video is longer than I expected it to be, but hopefully I've conveyed a lot of interesting information to you. So thank you for watching. I'll definitely leave this dry for a while. We've reached the end. So may you have many phenomenal, excellent, intriguing pen experiences and explore this phenomenal world that we have an opportunity to partake in. So until again we meet, bye. That is one gusher.